Episode 2 of A Bloody Lucky Day starts at a psychiatric hospital with a mysterious man and a doctor asking him questions. Suddenly, the mysterious man takes a pen he is playing with on the table and goes to stab the doctor when the scene changes to where we left off in episode 1 with the microwave beeping. Otake tries to open the door, but it is locked. The mysterious man almost opens it, but Ju-won calls Otake, and he has to walk away from the truck, but not before cussing the truck driver out. Ju-won is surprised to hear Otake lose his temper. When Otake tells him about the mysterious customer, Ju-won advises him to make an excuse, drop the weird customer anywhere, and then return to Seoul. Otake desperately needs the money and decides to stick to the end, especially when the customer pays him half the fare. Elsewhere, Seung-kyu takes pictures of the photo she finds at the doctor's house. She tries calling Jungmin, but he is busy working on protective detail and does not pick up. She remembers the neighbor telling her about the doctor taking a taxi near the convenience store with a huge carry-on like he was going somewhere far. Meanwhile, our mystery man introduces himself to Otake as GM Huku. Otake notices a blood stain on Hyk-soo's pants and thinks out loud that the stain is not a drip from when he cut his arm. Hyk-soo asks if he thinks that he killed someone at the rest stop, but Otake tells him that he was just thinking out loud. Seung-kyu pays the attendant at the convenience store to view the CCTV footage outside the store. The attendant helps her enhance the image, and she calls So-ming's taxi to ask about Otake's phone number. Consequently, Ju-won calls Otake angrily, asking what he did with the psycho, but his earpiece runs out of battery, and Hyuk-soo hears the call. Otake explains the psycho part by telling Hyuk-soo that his friend thinks that he is crazy to pay double for the trip to Mokpo. On the way, they see a billboard of Jisoo, and Hyuk-soo starts telling a story about his high school first love, Sena. She was in the drama club and was the reason why Hyuk-soo joined the club. Sena never let people in until she and Hyuk-soo became close one day. Hyuk-soo and Sena's minds were alike, and they even exchanged diaries about committing a perfect crime. However, one day after accepting his gifts, Sena told Hyuk-soo not to call him anymore since she had a boyfriend. Hyuk-soo would not let it go, and he challenged the boyfriend. Unfortunately for him, the boyfriend was an athlete, and he beat Hyuk-soo black and blue, leaving him lying on the road helpless. He had decided to end his life and boarded a bus heading to the beach when the accident happened, and he got what he terms as superpowers. After leaving the hospital, he decided to test his powers and lured the boyfriend out to the roof. After the fight, the boyfriend falls off the roof, and the whole scene is shown in retrospect. Elsewhere, Seung-kyu arrives at Samang Taxi to ask about the taxi driver that Hyuk-soo boarded. The dispatcher tries calling Mr. Yang since he takes the night shift, but he does not answer. The dispatcher tells her to fill out a form for lost and found and check it out later. Suddenly, another driver walks by, talking about knowing where to find Mr. Yang. Seung-kyu follows him into his taxi and pays for information about Mr. Yang's whereabouts. Elsewhere, Otake asks Hyuk-soo to stop telling him scary stories about his past, but Hyuk-soo forces him to listen, saying he is getting bored. In another flashback to the past, Hyuk-soo is back at high school, but Sena is no longer around. He says that since he had nothing to do, he decided to study a little and got into a prestigious university everyone was discussing. He attended orientation but was extremely bored and hated the experience. At the end of orientation, he lands at the hospital after getting glass shards on his arm, and that is when he gets attracted to blood. After that, his alter ego, Sena's dead boyfriend, kept appearing, telling him that he was different and that he should embrace it. He visits the psychiatrist and pumps himself full of drugs and alcohol, trying to get the image of Sena's boyfriend out of his head. One night, in his drunkenness, a homeless man tries to steal his wallet, and he kills him. Back on the drive to Mokpo, Hyuk-soo tells Otake that killing the homeless man was his first murder, and he felt alive and reborn. He insists that he is not joking, and to prove it, he shows Otake a finger. Otake is so surprised that he suddenly brakes in the middle of the road but pulls aside. Huku says the finger is warm since he just cut it and belongs to the campervan driver. He says he did it for Otake since he saw how he glared at him in the restroom. Otake insists he did not want to kill the driver, and Huku changes the story, saying that the finger is not the driver's and he is just kidding. Meanwhile, Sunkyu finds Mr. Yang's whereabouts and goes to the restaurant to look for him. He is not in the eating room but in a secret gambling chamber. The waitress calls Mr. Yang out of the hotel, but no one answers. Outside, Sunkyu starts looking for the taxi among the ones parked outside, but it is not there. She almost gives up but calls Mr. Yang's number one more time. Fortunately, Mr. Yang has just stepped out for a smoke, and Sunkyu sees him rejecting her call and runs after him. Mr. Yang takes the money she offers and gives her Otake's number. He also tells her about the customer who paid him double to drive to Mokpo. Otake realizes that Huku's stories are not made up, and he gets too scared to drive. He tries to get out of the car, but Huku stops him. He has already paid him half, and all he has to do now is drive him to Mokpo so he can smuggle out and listen to his stories along the way. Otake pleads with Huku to take the money back and another taxi, but he refuses. Huku takes Otake's phone and switches it off just as Sunkyu is trying to call him. He says he will keep the phone to ensure Otake does not report him. As Otake starts the drive to Mokpo, scared for his life, he remembers Ju-won telling him about emergency lights. The taxi car had an emergency light button that flashed red, and he had told him to use it if he ever encountered a dangerous person. Otake starts glancing at Huku, trying to find an opportunity to use the button. He asks Huku to get him digestive medicine from the dashboard and switches the button. However, nobody notices the red light. Sunkyu goes to see Jungmin with evidence she found at Huku's house. Jungmin tells him that the evidence is inadmissible in court since it is acquired illegally, and he cannot go with her to the house without a search warrant. An incident happens at the event. Jungmin must leave hurriedly and ignores Sunkyu's pleas. Feeling frustrated and angry, she calls Mr. Beck and asks him to search for any stowaway ships in Mokpo and to get her a gun. On the way to Mokpo, another driver notices the emergency light and decodes to follow the taxi. Huku asks Otake to stop at a rest area nearby, and the car follows them. Otake takes an opportunity when Huku is distracted and exits the taxi. He goes to the men and asks for their help. One of them bravely approaches the car, but Huku ends up killing him. Otake witnesses as he kills the second man in front of his eyes. He goes to run from Huku but trips and falls at the end of the episode. The episode review. The episode explains the mysteries of the first. Huku might be a serial killer who feels neither fear nor pain. His origin stems from a first love story when a girl he loved betrayed and left him for another person. Sunkyu's son might be one of his victims, but the reason why he had to kill him is unknown. Otake finally realizes the person he is taking to Mokpo might be a psychopathic killer, but his first escape attempt does not go as he hopes. He ends up getting 2 more people killed. Will Huku kill him, or will he force him to drive the rest of the way to Mokpo and listen to his murder stories? Let us discover what happens in this intense story in the next episode.